Matthew Sakanson here. I'm going to talk about how to make a early period Pandura starting with a wine box. If we open this up inside, we can see I've attached a neck on the inside of the lid here, cutting out a certain section of it so that the neck lays flush with the top of the box. And then I have affixed, well, it's not affixed because it's floating, but I have bridges here to hold up the strings, nails down here holding the strings in place, and then tuning pegs here. I've drilled holes this way into the neck and also straight through at the other way so that these strings can come out and the pegs can fit in nice and snug. I'll get into more detail on this a bit later, but first we're just going to cover the basics of what you need to start with. And the starting point was a box just like this one and a plank of hardwood. I like to use red oak. A lot of different people like walnut or different woods for their neck, but you need a harder wood for your neck because you're going to be using friction tuning pegs in here, and those need much harder wood than pine or your typical softer woods. So with just these basic materials, these are your starting points here. You can almost see the instrument just like this with the neck laid on top. Just a nice old wine box. Anybody may have them in their basement or garage somewhere. Sometimes you'll have to fix them up a bit, like this one. Before I use it, we'll need to glue this back down, correct any errors you may see if the edges are warped. You can see this up in here. Fix things like that. Let the glue dry for a couple of days before you get started on the rest of the process. But attaching a neck and the strings to a box like this is actually a fairly simple, straightforward process. Let me open up inside here, and you can see this is the main neck piece. This is another supporting section back here, and I've had to jimmy it. There's more wood under here. I've had to arrange it so that the neck is flush with the top of the body, because if you just cut a notch in here and then lay your neck into here, you're going to be offset by the thickness of the top plank. You're going to have a neck that's offset from your body, and that's a little bit less than ideal. So you want to get that flush by finding the right spacing here, like I've done here. There's any number of ways you can do it based on the materials at hand, but the idea is just to have a nice, firm, solid foundation here for the neck to come off of. And carving out the hole here, sometimes that's usually the most of the work, is just getting these designs to line up so that your neck is flush with the entire body. And then your decision basically you make is, do you want a long skinny neck like a saz or bouzouki type of instrument, or if you want more of like a lute or guitar like instrument, you're going to want a thicker neck, starting with something more like this. Sand it down the edges, make it nice and ovular. But if you want 6 strings or 7 or 8 strings like an old lute, you're going to want a thicker, wider neck, but shorter in length. That style of playing is also different. This is modeled off of the early Greek Pandura, which turned into the bouzouki and the saz. And that style of playing is mostly 1 or 2 strings up and down, all the way down the neck. So you're going up high and low. So you want a nice long neck to get a different range of notes. Guitars and lutes are played much more in this manner of style, where your fingers are just going up and down like that on a shorter neck instrument. So once you decide that, it comes time to drill out or cut out the edge of the box here, where you're going to attach the neck. Sand everything nicely, because you're going to get splinters playing it otherwise. Um, some of the other materials you're going to need, apart from the wood, uh, some kind of very, very hard wood or bone is ideal to use for the bridge pieces here and in here. I'll get into more detail with pictures later. You're also going to need some tuning pegs. These can be made by hand, but it's kind of a laborious process to get them to really function properly. They can usually be purchased for pretty cheap. A lot of different online suppliers have these. Here we have a violin tuning peg. This will work very nicely, and I like to use the oud tuning pegs. These are a bit longer. It gives you a little bit more flexibility of how you place it um, within the instrument. Coming up next is going to be some pictures showing some of the details of the instrument. Um, so you can avoid, hopefully, the mistakes that I made in making it. 'Cause of course, I have to learn the hard way. That's the best way, though. You learn so well when it's hard. Here we have the brass nails that hold the strings at the bottom of the instrument. They're put in the center. The point that they fix at needs to be behind the plane of the top of the instrument so that they're tight across before they interact with the bridge here. If the strings are affixed right here, they have a tendency to float up and just pull loosely across the top, and they don't really make nice tension across here. You really need this angle here, and then a nice straight neck, and then the same thing at the other end of the instrument where the tuning pegs are. They must also affix at a point below this plane. So the strings are actually attached inside here around the tuning pegs. So they also pull that nice little triangular angle here. Those are very important details because otherwise the string is not going to resonate correctly across the instrument. They have to be pulled tight and then across a bridge here and down again at the other bridge down here, pulled tightly across there.